Let me start with this. California built its modern identity on one core idea, that the next great fortune would be created in the Bay Area, taxed in Sacramento, and spent across the rest of the state. For decades, that model worked, but in the final days of the year, it was tested, quietly, precisely, and almost invisibly. Because while lawmakers were arguing over a retroactive billionaire wealth tax, one of the most powerful people in technology made a move so clean that most people didn't notice until it was already over. Larry Page didn't hold a press conference. He didn't post a statement. He didn't explain himself to anyone. He simply moved the legal skeleton of his empire out of California. And by the time the public realized what had happened, the tax bill California was counting on was already gone. I'm Donald Douglas, and this is the Douglas Insights. If you value serious reporting, real analysis, not headlines, take a second to like, subscribe, comment, and share. This is the only official channel. There are a lot of imitators out there. This is the original. Now, what happened next matters far beyond one billionaire, because this wasn't just a personal financial decision. It was a warning shot for California's budget, its political strategy, and its future as the center of American innovation. Here's why. The week that changed everything. Timing was everything. In the final days of December, California lawmakers were debating a proposal that would reach backward, retroactively, and impose a new annual wealth tax on the state's richest residents. On paper, it sounded simple, a small percentage, only billionaires, once a year. But in reality, it became a countdown clock. Because if that tax took effect on January 1st, then residency on that day could define everything. And Larry Page moved like he understood exactly what was coming. Between December 23rd and December 30th, a series of filings quietly appeared, not on social media, not in headlines, in state offices, in corporate registries, in places almost no one ever looks. And they weren't random, they were coordinated. Companies tied to Page-shifted addresses, converted jurisdictions, rebuilt their legal posture fast. This wasn't relocation. This was corporate surgery, done quietly, done cleanly, and done before the clock ran out. The effect was immediate. California's ability to claim Page's fortune weakened overnight, and the state ran straight into the one thing it can't easily fight: a well-prepared exit. The paperwork that moved billions. This story lives in documents, certificates of conversion, amended registrations, new principal addresses. A family office tied directly to Page converted into a Delaware entity. A company linked to advanced aviation shifted its address to Florida. An AI-driven aircraft startup re-registered in Texas. Each filing looked routine on its own. Together, they told a very different story. This was a rapid repositioning of legal ownership away from California's tax system. No shutdowns, no layoffs, no announcements, just paperwork that quietly changed where profits are counted, where disputes are handled, and where the state can claim authority. Florida, Nevada, Texas. Those states weren't chosen by accident. They don't tax personal income. They make restructuring easier, and they don't chase capital after it leaves. This wasn't about moving people or offices. It was about moving the legal identity that controls the money. And he wasn't alone. Here's the part that really matters. This didn't stop with Larry Page. Sergey Brin, his longtime partner from Google's earliest days, moved through the same narrow window. Multiple LLCs were relocated or dissolved. A joint holding company re-registered in Nevada, leaving Palo Alto behind. That's not coincidence. That's coordination. That's shared risk assessment at the very top. This wasn't one billionaire acting on instinct. This was the founders of California's most iconic tech success story, quietly preparing for a future where the state itself had become a financial liability. At least 7 major entities converted out of California in that final week alone. Insiders say the real number is likely higher. An empire with many doors, and one by one, those doors closed. Why Delaware? Matters. Delaware played a key role here. Not because it's flashy, but because it's protective. Business-friendly courts, predictable rulings, privacy rules that make ownership structures difficult to trace. For corporate conversions, Delaware isn't just convenient. It's defensive. Florida, Nevada, and Texas finished the job. Together, they created a legal firewall. Teams can still work in California. Research can still happen there. But the jurisdiction, the governance, and the profits, they move elsewhere. The money follows the paperwork. That's the reality policymakers often ignore. They imagine wealth sitting still. It doesn't. It moves, and it moves fastest on paper. Why the wealth tax changed everything. This wasn't theoretical. A 1% annual wealth tax isn't small. For someone worth over $100 billion, it's existential. Larry Page treated it that way. Residency fights aren't won with a plane ticket. They're won with patterns. Where you live, where you buy property, where your companies are registered, where you sign documents. That final week of the year became a race to establish those facts before January 1st. Lawmakers debated as if wealth would wait politely. Page assumed the opposite. Change the facts first. Let the law chase them later. The real estate that sealed the deal. And then came the real estate. This part wasn't subtle. In early December, Page finalized the purchase of a massive waterfront estate in Coconut Grove, Miami, roughly $32 million. Days later, he added another Biscayne Bay mansion for about $45 million. Together, around $77 million. That wasn't about lifestyle. Under California law, buying a permanent home is one of the clearest signals of changing residency. These weren't indulgences, they were anchors. Dropped before January 1st. The math explains everything. Page's net worth was estimated around $120 to $130 billion. At 1%, California's annual claim could reach over $1 billion. That's not a tax tweak. That's a forced transfer of wealth. And capital gains make it even clearer. Sell $1 billion in stock in California. You owe roughly $130 million in state taxes. In Florida, zero. Against those numbers, $77 million in property isn't spending, it's insurance. A pattern California can't ignore. And this isn't isolated. Elon Musk left for Texas. Larry Ellison shifted Oracle to Austin. Peter Thiel and Keith Rabois moved to Florida. Joe Lonsdale steered Palantir toward Texas. This isn't protest, it's migration toward predictability. The bigger risk for California. Here's the uncomfortable truth. California's tax system concentrates risk. A tiny percentage of earners generate a massive share of revenue. When just a few leave, the budget feels it immediately. From 2018 to 2022, California lost hundreds of billions in taxable income to other states. Raise rates, people leave, the base shrinks, rates go up again. Not collapse, but compounding strain. Larry Page's move isn't just personal finance. It's a case study in how policy shapes behavior at the top. And the paperwork, it's already done. I'm Donald Douglas, and that is all for today. Do subscribe to the Douglas Insights, leave a comment, share this video, because the next filing may already be happening, and the next great fortune may already be landing somewhere else.